Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of Red Cape Sports. I'm your host, Bird Bouchard. Please be sure to stick around because today I mention my top 5 NHL Young Gun cards to buy for this upcoming season.
This episode's brought to you by Red Cape Films.
As usual, before I begin this episode, I just want to kindly remind you all to smash the like button. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, leave your comments down below because speaking of comments, this video is actually inspired by the comments section. We recently did a top 5 MLB cards to buy and somebody said, hey, what about Canada's favorite sport, hockey? So that's why we're doing this video. So definitely be sure to comment. Mitch and I always try to be very interactive, and like I said, that's why we're doing this video. So today we have a $100 budget, and I got 5 cards. Now the last video, and normally when we do these types of videos, we do have a $50 budget. However, it doesn't take much research to realize 5 cards for NHL Young Guns, because of course that's what you should be, arguably speaking, collecting. But 5 cards for $50 just it really doesn't work for Young Guns because the guys who you should be getting, it just doesn't work. So we decided to crank it up to a $100 budget. But for this $100 budget, you still got 5 cards. So we're going to jump into it. Number 1, we got 23-year-old Kyle Connor. So Kyle Connor is a young player. He's already got 3 different 30-goal seasons. Anytime that you're playing with Scheifele, Line and Wheeler, you're going to be a stud. And although this season is currently suspended, he was off to a really hot start. 38 goals, 35 assists, which is good enough for 73 points in 71 games. So more than a point per game player. And his card, all these cards are well below $20. I believe the only one that might be a bit more difficult to find for $20 or less is the next one coming up. But again, they all even out so that you can buy them all for $100 or less. But the one that's probably on the more expensive side here is Artemi Panarin. So Artemi Panarin, man, he's kind of proving that he was worth every single penny for the New York Rangers. And he's really buying into the Broadway hype. And the Rangers are only a couple points out of playoffs because of him. Now, yes, he is on the older side of the spectrum, but you do have to remember he spent 7 years in the KHL, a couple years with Chicago, and then, also time spent with Columbus. Now, this year, he's top 5 in points. He's really done it all, 32 goals, but more importantly, 63 assists. So he's proving that he can really set up guys like Mika Zibanejad, guys like Chris Kreider, Pavel Buchnevich, and the list goes on and on. So he's got 69 games played and 95 points. So just an absolute stud of a player. He's obviously the leader of the team. He's basically the closest thing that we've seen to Pavel Datsyuk since he left for the KHL. So he's a good buy. You can still buy his NHL Young Guns card for around $20 or less. Moving on, well, of course, he's obviously distributing the puck. And he's getting a ton of assists, and that's largely due to Mika Zibanejad. So Mika Zibanejad, at least in my opinion, will be the next captain of the New York Rangers. Zibanejad is only 26 years old, but he's got 41 goals and 34 assists, good enough for 75 points in only 57 games played. It would be absolutely crazy to see, what he would have done had he not had that lower body injury at the start of the season. So Mika Zibanejad, just if you really look at what he's done, even since he was playing World Juniors for Sweden, Mika Zibanejad is a goal scorer, just a natural-born goal scorer. And I mean, his cards right now you can find for pretty cheap, and at least in my opinion, it's a good buy. When the Rangers become the team that they're gonna become, when Kakko gets his chance to do everything in Panarin. Anyway, I'm rambling. Your third buy should be Mika Zibanejad. A fourth card is a guy who Mitch and I have spoken about a lot, but I speak about him a lot because he's a good buy. And for one reason or another, his cards haven't quite caught on yet. probably because Don Cherry thinks he's part of a bunch of jerks. And that's Sebastian Aho, 22 years old from Finland. He's a stud. 38 goals, which is really good. 28 assists, good enough for 66 points in 68 games in the NHL. So he's cracked that top 10 list in terms of goals. Of course, Carolina, at least in my opinion, in a few years, because of himself, Svechnikov, Teravainen, Martinikas, Fogle, and everyone, I believe that Carolina is indeed a cup contender. They're just a goalie away, in my opinion. This guy's a natural-born goal scorer. I mentioned, he's playing with Svechnikov and Teravainen on that same line. So if he doesn't put the puck in the net, he's at least going to rack up a ton of assists. His card is so undervalued. Pick it up. And the fifth and final card is going to be Braden Point. Now, a lot of people do question, is he just a product of a top line with Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov? At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Look at a guy like Leon Draisaitl. Now, mind you, Draisaitl this year did prove that even when McDavid was out, that he's a stud. I mean, he's already got 100 points, so that says everything. But Braden Point is only 24 years old. He has 25 goals and 39 assists already. That's 64 points in 66 games played. Of course, all of these 5 guys are basically point per game players, if not better. Now, you got to remember too, Tampa, yes, they choked last year, but eventually, theoretically speaking, at least on paper, they should win a Stanley Cup. So, I mean, anytime that you can buy a card for $10 to $15, $20, and the guy's likely going to win a championship like Braden Point will, again, it's a good buy, at least in my opinion. So he's surrounded by playmakers, and he can score. Last year, he had 41 goals, and his card is still, at least in my opinion, severely undervalued. So again, guys, there are my top 5 cards to buy right now at this moment. If you have the money, under a $100 budget, they're all NHL Young Gun cards. If you can find them graded for a cheap price, sure enough, go for it. But primarily speaking, when we do make these videos, they will be raw, ungraded cards. So just, remind yourself to look for things such as surface, if they have a dings, the edges, how are they, the corners, and of course, centering. Centering is probably going to be the one that's off the most. But if you can find these for a good price, and if they do look good, I highly suggest that you at least look into purchasing them. Maybe if your budget is a bit lower, grab 1 or 2, maybe even 3 cards of these. So anyways, guys, that is my list. Until next time.